70 years ago, much of Essex was devoted to specialist production of flower and vegetable seed. Nowadays, because of the high labour requirement, competition from crops in better climates overseas, and the much easier return from wheat, the industry has dwindled. However, this 200-acre farm in the Kelvendon area is one of 3 owned by the Bonner Brother Partnerships and is still largely devoted to seed production. Growing for seed is labour-intensive, and to give continuity of work for a large gang of semi-permanent staff, the Bonner Brothers grow a whole range of horticultural crops. Sweet corn, which they harvest and sell themselves, and various soft fruits, such as strawberries, raspberries and black currants, for self-pick. The result is an incredibly complex business. Whilst it would have been understandable in the past, with low wages and the boss having complete authority, today it demands a very high level of management, coupled with a flair for public relations. Tony Bonner runs this part of the business and looks after the bulk of the seed crops. One of the number of flower crops grown for seed is this one of Gadisha.
This year, I'm not having bird trouble with it. Normally we have a lot of trouble with linnets and I have to harvest it before time.
Well, let's have a look at the seed. I mean, how can you see whether it's ready or not?
Well, this is coming up already. The seed is brown inside and starting to break away. This part actually would make up perfectly all right and have viable seed. But by now, normally the birds are starting picking the tops, and so you often have to take it before it's time.
What birds?
Linnets, usually. We've got to build up a very big flock here.
Well, what do you do? Can you do anything to control them?
Nothing at all. We've tried different things. We've tried various sprays. It doesn't seem worthwhile to put on this scarrow web and stuff like that, and so we often have to harvest some of these crops before they're really ready.
Yeah. And when you say harvest this, now what's the process of harvesting it?
Well, normally we cut it by hand with a hook. We put people in here, cut it by hand, then we trave it. Some people would call it stooking.
Trave?
Trave, yes, Essex for stooking.
Yes, yeah, all right.
And into small traves. Then we put it into stacks and cover them with a cloth to keep the rain out, and usually on a pallet or stack bottom of some sort. And we leave them there until it's very, very dry. Then we thrash it usually through a combine to grind up these pods, which are very, very hard and tough by that time, and very difficult to. So we close the combine and harvest it down very tightly and grind the pods up through that.
Well, we're into September now.
I know.
And you've talked about 6 different processes. When are you going to actually get the seed out of it?
Well, once we've got it in the stacks, we can get the seed out any time we like. I mean, in my grandfather's day, all these things were cut and put in stacks, and he'd probably make a big stack back in the farmyard with the whole lot, and that would be thrashed out in the wintertime. And probably he might thrash out with a drum, but more likely he would thrash it out with flails or walking horses over on concrete floor or stone floor.
I get the feeling that might help your bird problems. You've had a lot of small boys out here with flails to keep them off. Let's have a look at one of these other crops you're growing. Tell me a bit more about harvesting, Tony. This one's called candy tuft, aren't I right?
That's right, yes.
Is that ready for threshing or whatever?
Well, very close to it now. If you squeeze it, the seed is already there. We should probably thrash this, there's quite a lot of it. We'll probably thrash this through the combine harvester.
Just chuck it in the front and...
Yes, we have the pickup attachment on the front, and we fork it into the combine harvester, lay a cloth in front so we don't lose any seed. And we don't use the tank part. We probably tie a dustbin underneath the spout. And
I was going to ask about that, because cleaning the combine between these varieties must be murder.
Oh, it is an awful problem. We have to be very careful that we don't put another crop through with similar sized seeds. But apart from that, we take a long time sometimes to clean out the combine with a vacuum cleaner and a blower, and running straw through and so on until we get it as clean as we possibly can.
And then fingers crossed.
Well, yes, they don't design them for us.
No, you don't have to use a combine, though. You tell me there is another way of doing it.
Oh, yes. On this particular thing, if the heads are not too hard, you can lay it on a cloth or bring it back to the farm onto a piece of concrete and run over it with the tractor tires.
Lay it on a cloth?
Yes, we bring a cloth down here and we lay it on the cloth and then lay it out on the cloth and then run backwards and forwards with the tractor tires and thrash out the seed that way. But you can, if it's very tough, we might take it back to the farm and put it on a piece of concrete, sweep a piece of concrete clean, and you get a much better thrashing action on concrete.
Tractor wheels and hand stooking underline the most surprising part of these operations. For these basic seed crops grown in relatively small plots, there are no sophisticated and expensive machines available, and harvesting techniques have remained relatively unchanged for generations.
Well, Tony, I'm a Devon man, but this soil doesn't look like A1+. Is it very important, the soil type for flower growing?
Yes, it's always considered this soil is on gravel, a free-draining soil on gravel, and it's reckoned to be a very good seed-growing land because the plants don't keep growing and they'll finish off. If you have a heavier type of richer land, the plants, the flowers will keep on blooming and won't finish off properly. So this is reckoned to be a pretty good seed-growing land.
What about weed control?
Yes, well, on this particular one, this is calendula, and it was sprayed. It was a pre-emergent spray with CIPC, which was pretty effective. And then all we've done walked through with a hoe since then, just picking out any weeds that got through the net.
These flower seeds are all grown on fixed-price contracts, so at least the problem of selling the crop is taken care of.
What about this one, Tony? What's this called?
This is helichrysum, and or everlasting flower.
That's an easy one for me to remember.
And we usually harvest this by picking the seed heads once until which has already been done with this like this.
That's these dead bits here. You've already picked those off, yeah. And by hand,
Yes, by hand, and otherwise, of course, they'd all fluff and blow away. But then we cut the whole crop, and then trave it, stack it, and then it would be thrashed by running over with the tractor tyres sometime later. Once we've got it in the stack, it's safe from the weather, and we don't have to worry about it at all.
It just all seems an extraordinarily intensive job to me. I mean, is it worth it? What's the value per acre of flowers as a crop, general terms?
Well, the flowers we've seen here, they vary in price between about £2.50 a kilogram to about £25 a kilogram. And overall, I suppose it can vary according to what the season's like and so on, between about anything between £300 to £400 up to about £1,000 an acre.
Yeah.
But we don't usually think of these things in an acre. We usually think of it as an overall crop and an overall price for all the flowers. Some are easier to harvest, some are difficult.
And what's the most expensive part of handling the crop?
I think usually the most expensive part is the cutting and travang it and putting it up. Thrashing is not usually so very expensive on this. It doesn't take very long to run over them with a tractor or to put them through a combine.
Marrows have been grown for seed on this farm for 25 years. They are a unique crop. Tony Bonner is the only farmer willing to tackle the job in this part of the world. The seed is sown in May, using an old Smythe drill in 2-foot 2-inch rows, with 2.5 hundredweights of complete fertilizer. As no sprays are available for weed control, the crop is kept clean by inter-row cultivations. But this crop was a little disappointing, due to lack of rain in the summer. Getting the seeds out of the marrow used to be done by hand, and was a very lengthy and unpopular job. Tony Bonner is not a person to be put off easily, and he tried various ways to mechanize this work over the years. It wasn't until somebody threw a marrow into an old harvesting drum that the marrow bashing machine was born. The machine itself is in fact the rear part of an old Alice Chalmers trail combine, which has been ingeniously adapted. When Tony first started marrow bashing, these machines could be picked up for a fiver. Now, unfortunately, the supply is dwindling, and this one could be the last working basher in Britain. Once the seeds are in the barrels, they are allowed to ferment. This makes the gel separate from the seed when it can be washed off, and finally, the seed is dried and grated. Red beet for seed is relatively easy to handle mechanically, and is grown on a field scale. The problem with this crop is uneven ripening, probably due to variation in soil, and it makes the decision of when to swath a tricky one.
Well, here we are, Tony, another extraordinary seed crop, tomatoes for seed. Now, here we are. I know we're in a nice part of England, but it's still pretty cold. Why don't they grow tomatoes for seed in North Africa or Italy or Spain or somewhere like that?
Well, I think the bulk of the tomato seed is grown in a better climate, the Mediterranean climate, and in America. But the seed firms in this country want to have stocks which they can keep an eye on, and also disease-free. They can be checked for the diseases over here, and so they like to put out a certain amount of their basic stock in this country.
So this is the premium stuff?
Yes, it is indeed.
Absolutely. OK, well, you've got a box full here.
Yes.
All picked by these women. Now, How ripe do they have to be before you get the seed out of them?
Always, as long as they're turning colour, they're perfectly all right. And one like that is perfectly all right. These are rather small, actually, on the year because of the drought.
Yeah. And how many times would you pick a crop like this?
Well, normally about 3. This is the second pick over. I think we've got just about 1 more pick left.
So that a tomato like this one, you would hope to get him another time?
Yes, yes, and they should come in the next pick, yes.
Yeah. The other thing about tomatoes that I do know is they're very susceptible to spray.
Yes, we have to be very, very careful about spraying in crops in the vicinity.
What about your neighbours? Are they pretty good?
Oh, yes, yes. We have little trouble from our neighbours. We do spray them ourselves against potato blight with a zinc compound, and we spray them probably about every 10 days from the time the fruit first starts to appear. That's about the only spraying they ever get. We don't spray for weed control at all.
What about fertiliser and that sort of thing?
We just a general fertiliser on them, about 200 to 300 weight of a general fertiliser an acre. If you put too much nitrogen on, you'll get too much greenery and probably not enough food. They like a lot of potash on this soil.
Once the tomatoes are in the shed, the easy part, if you can call it that, is done. This Tomato Gloppiter Mark I, for want of a better name, Tony Bonner has built himself. But to get a good extraction, the tomatoes have to be put through twice, so that a Mark II machine is being built. These inventive and ingenious solutions to problems are the hallmark of Tony Bonner's trade, and I got the impression that a large part of his satisfaction from farming was in tackling problems other people had discarded as being impossible. The machine squeezes the inside pulp from the tomatoes, which is collected in a dustbin. This pulp is largely a watery gel, and the bulk of the water is got rid of by sieving. Again, the emphasis is on hand labour and simple tools rather than expensive machinery with a high capital outlay. The final removal of gel from seed is quite hair-raising. The seeds are steeped for 20 minutes using concentrated hydrochloric acid. Tony Bonner treats this as quite a normal operation, but he does insist on doing the job himself. The time the seed is in the acid is critical. It has to be enough to clean the seed without dissolving its protective coat. Once the steeping is done, the acid is washed out of the seed, and any flesh or skin floated off in 3 to 4 operations. After all this, the seed is dried. An old in-sack dryer is used, and is still by far the safest method of keeping varieties separate. At anything up to £30 a pound, the seed is very valuable, with a small bagful being worth over £1,000. However, it needs to be to repay the very high labour cost. Seed production from runner beans, like the red beet, is now relatively simple, thanks to the modern combine. In the old days, the beans were machine cut and then hung up to dry on long racks built between the rows by hand. But this crop, which has been picked once for the fresh vegetable trade, will be combined direct from the swath.
Well, Tony, parsley for seed. Now, this one really does interest me, because rightly or wrongly, I've been persuaded to have a go at it. You're swathing it now. Is that right?
I'm very doubtful about it. There's still a lot of green heads in it, but the season is so very late, I feel I must do something about it. Otherwise, it will drag on, and I've got to thrash it at some time, and we might get into very bad weather. So I've started to swath it. Other farmers around here are doing the same thing. One man is cutting his with a binder today, I gather, and but we're all a little bit doubtful this year because there's a great variety or great difference between the heads. A lot of the heads are still very green, and we're very worried about there might be a germination problem later on.
That's the point, germination.
Yes, germination.
Yeah.
We don't get paid if we don't get the germination up.
Well, I see you stopped swathing.
Well, yes, I came into this field and I thought it looked rather greener than it ought to. At the top of the field, it's all right. It's on hotter land. But down here, it looked a little bit too green, and so I stopped him and probably hold off for about a week and start again.
You're talking about swathing in October. When are you going to combine it?
Oh, I don't know. We've had this problem before, where it's run right into the winter almost with the stuff on the ground. It's our last crop usually to thrash.
I think perhaps I should have thought twice. Now, it's a biennial, am I right?
Yes, we drill this mainly in May, and then we produce a crop of parsley the first year, which goes through the winter, and then the following year we get the parsley seed.
Well, going back to the beginning of the season, you put the crop in. What about weed control?
Weed control is comparatively easy with this. You can spray with the Lineron, which is a very good spray.
When you put it in, fertilizer?
Yes, I often put fertilizer on the ground before I put it in, and not very much, about 2 to 2.5 hundredweight an acre before we drill. And then in the spring, the following spring, give it about a couple of hundredweight, 2.5 hundredweight of nitrogen.
And do you spray it again the second year?
Yes, we usually spray it as soon as the weeds start to emerge in the spring, sort of February, March time. And so give it another dose of Lineron. Occasionally we've had a breakthrough of that and given it another dose of Lineron as a contact spray, the further dose.
I've been persuaded to undersow it. Is that the right thing to do?
Well, we usually we have undersown it in the past, but nowadays we tend to think that it's easier to keep the crop clean. Well, probably we did it because it was easier to keep the crop clean by spraying. But it's a long time since we've undersown it at all, because it does save you a year.
Well, you got me so worried. I'm rather glad I did, because even if I lose the crop next year, at least it won't be a 2-year total write-off.
Yes, but there are not many years when we actually lose this crop. Last year, for example, on my parsley, I got a rather low germination figure, but it was all right. It just about allowed through, partly. But most people got their parsley through all right last year, and most years you get it all right. It just is one of those crops that it's a little bit more difficult to know when to cut than others. It probably becomes later in the season, and the crop is very slow developing at that time.
Well, Tony, this is sweet corn rather than the maize we grow for cattle, is that right?
That's right. It has much higher sugar content.
Yep. And how do you handle this crop? How do you harvest it?
Well, at this stage, gangs of women come in and pick it, put it into bags. We take it back to the farm, and then they pack it all into boxes. And most of it goes up to London, or quite a lot of it goes up to London, and it's sold in Dutch trays, about 15 cobs to a tray.
And do you plan that so many a day, or?
Yes, we ring up the markets, and we more or less decide beforehand what quantity we want to pick. We also send quite a lot of it into supermarkets and pre-packers, and they require it packed rather differently. They probably have they send their own boxes down, and we pack about 36 cobs or something like that into whatever.
Sounds like a lot of organisation.
Well, when once it gets going, it usually runs fairly sweetly. The trouble is getting the thing started. And also, the problems are when people change their orders, or suddenly somebody wants an extra lot. Then it throws you a bit. But normally the people come out here at 8 o'clock in the morning, they start work, and then we start bringing the stuff in, and then we can sort out the amounts to go to different places.
Yeah. You have an enormous labour content in all these crops, and I guess they're fairly short in their season. Do you try and fill the times of the year with crops to use the labour all the time?
Yes, basically we start off with when we employ a lot of labour, when we start picking strawberries. And then we run up to about 95 people or something like that picking strawberries. Then we go on to runner beans, where we require fewer people, about 30 or 40. And then we come on to this crop, where we're running probably 15 people, 20 people.
How many regular staff?
The people who work on the farm all the year round, all through the winter, are 2. But most of these other people are semi-permanent.
They come back again and again.
Yes.
And what about self-pick? Because, I mean, all you people up here do self-pick this
crop? No, we don't. On another farm, we sell it from the farm gate. But the labour content in this is comparatively low when it comes to quantities required. People having, on the self-pick basis, if somebody came to your farm to buy this, they would probably have to walk about half a mile to the field and walk into a crop that is very, very wet, pick a couple of cobs and walk back again. It's not on. So it's much easier for us to pick the...
Do you do self-pick there on the farm?
We do self-pick on other crops. We do gooseberries, black currants and raspberries and strawberries.
How do you make sure they stop at your farm and not the one up the road?
Oh, there's a keen rivalry on this, but we put up a lot of signs. We tend to find that a great deal of loyalty from the people who come. the same people come year after year and seem to be very proud of it. We get a lot of London people, especially weekends, and we think that if they like the farm, that they'll come back. So we think it's rather nice to make them welcome when they turn up.
So your flowers help, you know?
All flowers are an attraction. The people see them, and it's easy to describe where the place is. A place that grows flowers, they say, and then it makes it a little bit easier.
With all these seed crops, you can't get a lot of spare time from thought. Now you've gone and put self-pick in. Do you get any peace at all?
The self-pick season for us is a short one. We just take it through the strawberry season, which includes also raspberries, currants, and gooseberries and so on. We don't take it beyond there. So we have really a month to 6 weeks when it's really very hectic and the phone is ringing continuously, people asking prices, people wanting to know where we are. We happen to be in 1 or 2 books of people where people advertise for pick your own farms. And so we get a lot of people inquiring all the time.
Talking to Tony Bonner, it would be easy to underestimate the difficulties of his farming. I found it an incredibly complex operation, any part of which could have been a full-time manager's job.
Me? Yeah, all right. Not at all sure about this thing. Now, what do you do? Up?
As you can see, even the simplest skill requires a knack, which you don't pick up in 5 minutes.